Hey everybody, happy Monday. I am pre-recording the videos this week, so anything you see that is slightly out of date by the time it airs, I apologize. It's what I have to do to make sure there's no skipped videos this week. I feel really bad whenever that happens, and this week is gonna be nuts because the move is beginning. We finally take possession of the new place and we demo the kitchen before moving because I don't want the cats breathing in the dust. Poor Momo. Oh my God, I can't put him through anymore. So it's gonna be a week or two of I don't know when my internet's gonna get turned off and the change of service and all that stuff. So I'm making sure everything is up in advance so there are no disruptions. Also, I never know how videos like this are gonna go. So help support this channel, become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. I may catch a ton of hate for this video. I have no idea, but it's something I saw. I feel like I have to speak out against it because I'm like, double standard. And of course, I'm referring to the sexual objectification of Jason Momoa. Now, some of you may not know who Jason Momoa is. Some of you may know him as Aquaman from the mostly terrible Justice League movie. Some of you may know him as Khal Drogo from the first season of Game of Thrones. Some people may know him from internet memes like this. And I always find this meme extremely strange because this is the part in Justice League where he slugs back a bottle of whiskey and throws it into the ocean, thereby polluting his dominion with man-made goods. It makes no sense, but when does thirst make sense? Pardon the pun. I mean, the fans are thirsty as well as he was apparently very thirsty. But most of Jason Momoa's fame is due to moments like this where he is sleeveless and or shirtless and what apparently passes for, a caveman style of sexy in this day and age. And this is where I start going, hold up, something is a little bit, not right here. Because we constantly talk about the sexual objectification of women and how it's bad and how it leads to a disempowerment of women and the male gaze in cinema is so bad and all that stuff. But we don't talk about potential problematic stuff when we get cosmopolitan articles like this. A definitive timeline of Jason Momoa's hotness evolution from Baywatch to Aquaman. We don't care about his acting skills here. Cosmopolitan, a publication. Well, you can see it. Cosmopolitan. There's it won't go up. Shoot. A Cosmopolitan publication for women, talking about just the physical attractiveness of someone. Photo of Mike Tyson starting in 2000 when he looked fairly different to, onward, and he increasingly looks like Lisa Bonet, who I believe he was married to. But, then we start seeing a bit of the Drogo going on, and he has dreads, yep. And then he has glasses, and apparently this is relevant. And then I don't know what that is, but he looks a bit like Milli Vanilli there, a decade too late. But then we start getting into the period where he was shooting Game of Thrones, and you see the comments, oh, to be held by those hands, and, Paisley never looked so good, and they care if he cut off his hair and focus on his forearms, and raise your hands if your loins are burning. Could you imagine if a guy said that? And they even included this. I don't even understand this line, but that is quite a look. Okay. And then we get into Aquaman. It's just like, we're dead. I love my job. I think I've come back from the dead. And then pierce me with your trident and drown me in your underwater palace. And then it says, too far, I know. Imagine if a man had said that about a woman. This would not be okay. And as long as it's okay for a woman to do this and not a man, and the argument is it's okay for women to do this because something, 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 these kinds of arguments basically accept our second-class status, because permission to do these things for women hinges on the fact that we have second-class status. Ergo, it's okay for us to say this and men to not say this. In fact, Kit Harington, Jason Momoa's co-star in Game of Thrones, even though I don't think they were in a single scene together, got absolutely shellacked in public opinion when he dared to say he felt objectified in some scenes in Game of Thrones. And I think this is a fair criticism of the series. I think that some of the nudity is incredibly objectifying. Too often the nudity is like a backdrop or just something to look at while someone's making some sort of profound monologue. But he made the mistake of saying that there's sexism against men in Hollywood as well as women, and he absolutely got pilloried, and that completely distracted from his point that, you know, he felt uncomfortable, as did Jason Momoa on Game of Thrones. So you have all these actors saying they feel uncomfortable from a lot of the scenes in Game of Thrones. Even when Jason Momoa got in trouble for making a rape joke back in the day, 6 years later they found it and everybody got kind of mad, and he had to apologize. They took the joke that was, as far as sci-fi and fantasy, I love that genre because there are so many things you can do, like rip someone's tongue out of their throat and get away with it and rape beautiful women. That was basically the entirety of his role as Khal Drogo. He barely speaks for the first few episodes. When he does, it's in some, it's in Dothraki, which is like a made-up language. And basically all he does is grunt and rape Emilia Clarke and then grunt some more for a few episodes. And then he says some few things, a lot about raping other women and about stallions and mounting people like a stallion, which is, a dehumanizing metaphor in and of itself. The noble savage metaphor. Oh, he's brown, ergo, look at this primitive people who are, it's okay if they rape women because he, kind of reasons she eventually falls in love with him. That is not what happened in the book, and you can tell I'm still pissed all these years later. My first experience with Game of Thrones was, okay, it's rape, kill an animal, more rape. I'm done. I just recently went back to it and tried to stomach the show again. But more was made of that joke than his comments where, he says down here, it was incredibly uncomfortable. I'm raping Emilia Clarke, who plays Daenerys. I love her, but I'm hurting her and she's crying. We could have made it longer, but you get the idea. I'm not a rapist. I prefer my women to enjoy sex. Just do whatever your woman wants and you'll be fine. There are, like I said, there are some rumors that Jason Momoa is homophobic, but the idea that rape is bad is undermined from this massive media attention of a joke he made that was probably a way of trying to process his discomfort for what he had to do with that part. And I do think as beautifully shot and wonderfully acted as Game of Thrones is, it's HBO, which I've joked before means hey boobs out. And it is rather tawdry and objectifying and unnecessary in places, meaning that people are reduced to objects. There are scenes in the show that are just sex for the sake of showing sexualized naked bodies. And it doesn't really advance the plot at all. We get it. Please get on with it. That is a problem the show has. But then he moved over to Aquaman and he got it possibly worse. You know, he's the dude that pervs on Wonder Woman while he's got the lasso of truth wrapped around him. I hated that friggin' line. But, you know, apparently women everywhere, including in Cosmo, did not have any problem with, you know, Jason Momoa / Aquaman being something of a pig in that movie. They still think he's hot and want to sample his trident. Oh, the purple prose. But then, just as I was about to make this video, something happened. Ooh, I Canadian there a lot about. Something happened. And the thirst switched to outrage on the pervy woman internet. And we have Jason Momoa slammed over Amber Heard anecdote. Not remotely okay. What has happened? I mean, you may be going, Amber Heard again? Yeah. This is based on her version of events. And based on Amber Heard's history, and this is where I think people are going to get mad at me, but Amber Heard herself was accused of domestic abuse back in the day when she apparently assaulted her girlfriend at an airport. Her and her girlfriend then claimed it was homophobia on behalf of airport security and the police, and that there was no abuse at all. But then she wants us to believe her when she then claims Johnny Depp is an abusive husband and Jason Momoa is kind of a dick. I'm prefacing this just to present all the information. And, you know, she waffled back and forth of, he abused me, but now the split is amicable, but I am a victim and I support victims and I took this money from him, but I'm going to give it to charity because I don't want his money. It was a mess. It was a mess that seemed to hit him harder than it hit her. I'm withholding judgment on that one. I'm just stating the case for the record, because here we are again, Amber Heard saying something that we don't actually know Jason Momoa's perspective on it or why he did it. We just know that it happened. He confirmed that it happened, but we have her version of events of why it happened. This is it. An anecdote from Aquaman actress Amber Heard about her co-star Jason Momoa's behavior on set has some fans seeing red. What she said is, she plays Mera, Aquaman's queen. They have a very complex relationship in the comics, but while filming some of the movie's complex stunt scenes, she would find herself between takes 30 feet in the air, suspended on wires during these large setups, and somebody would rush in and throw my book up at me, she said, because she liked to read between takes. More on that in a bit. I would feel so bad someone was going out of their way to do it, but they could tell I was going crazy, so wardrobe built me a book bag. The book bag was made from the same green screen material as the backdrop setting so that it wouldn't interfere with her costume during shots. I could sling it over me and then I would just bring it around and pull out my book, she said. But there was another reason for Heard's purpose-built book bag. It kept her books safe and hidden from Aquaman himself, Momoa. I love Jason. We had so much fun together, but he is allergic to being ignored, and I am a bookworm who loves to read. He adopted this method of ripping out the pages of my books so I would pay attention to him, she revealed. It would drive me crazy because I'd have 30 pages left and it would be gone. That's actually cruel, one of the Good Morning America hosts said. So she went on Good Morning America, and just so you know, a lot of the anecdotes that they present on those shows are pre-cleared by the publicist. It's like, oh, this will be such a funny story to tell them. They very rarely go out and just say something. All of this has been rehearsed and choreographed in advance. And so why someone thought it was a good idea to have Amber Heard with her track record go out there and say, oh, Jason Momoa ripped up my book. I don't know why they would okay that. And if she didn't get an okay from that, she is hurting her movie, because Jason Momoa plays the name of the character who's the title of the movie, that being Aquaman. He got his own movie because women think he's hot. You don't want to get in the way of women thinking he's hot. And, as Jezebel put it, they basically, I'm sorry to report that Jason Momoa is actually Gaston. I didn't get that at first, but then I'm like, oh, right, Beauty and the Beast, Gaston doesn't care that Belle reads. And there may be more to the story. I'm not sure. It could just be that Jason Momoa is a raging dick. It also could be that when it's between takes, you're both dangling up there and neither of you has anything to do. And there's this form of acting where it's like in the moment where you have to believe absolutely in what you're doing. It's a very American form of acting. But, if you're supposed to be married in the scene and your co-star is tuning out on you between takes, that can throw some people off. So I don't want to join the pile on him. I don't know enough about what was actually going on. I also wonder, why the heck are they up there for that long? Like, you shouldn't. Those harnesses are not the most comfortable things in the world. They can cut off circulation in weird places. And, people who do like circus stuff for a living are not up there that long. You bring people down, you put them back up, the ropes are marked, you know where to land. Like, I don't get why they'd be suspended long enough to read. In one case, I read another article, like a 400 and some odd page book. And, it could be, if I role play for a minute and, imagine his point of view. We're supposed to be husband and wife in the scene and we're both suspended up here. We're the only two up there. We're stuck up there. And instead of, keeping each other company, she pulled out a book and I'm here doing nothing. And so I got a little tired of just being left hanging there, literally. So I played a really funny prank on her. I tore out the last 30 pages of her book. I kept them. I didn't throw them out, but I had them. I give it back to her. I think I made my point. Some people from that point of view would be, yeah, she ignored him. It's protagonist bias. It's who gets to tell the story sets the narrative. If a publicist thought this was a really adorable anecdote to talk about as part of PR for the movie, that was a horrendous mistake. I don't know what they were thinking. If Amber Heard went rogue on this, right or wrong, good luck getting hired again. Me Too or not, this narrative she's built up about herself or not, you don't on your own do something that hurts the potential for box office of a major tentpole film. And anything that comes out right before Christmas or in the summer, I think Aquaman's one of those ones like the 300 in Sin City where they're dropping it in like March. So I could be wrong. I could be confusing it with Shazam, but usually movies that drop in March are not very good, but are extremely pretty. And that's kind of what I expect. But the fact that everybody's gone, oh, how terrible. Well, ladies, really, what do you expect? This is a guy who is always hired to play the rough guy, the savage, the pig, he is just being consistent with the characters he plays. And I know people want to think he's acting, but unfortunately, a lot of people in Hollywood get hired to play themselves. And I've seen Jason Momoa in some other things, including Frontier, which is a show on Discovery Channel, which is way more boring than I thought it would be, but he's actually all right in it. Plays a very similar type of character, but he's not quite as overtly rough or piggish. But let's face it, women were drooling all over him, even though he's the guy that raped Daenerys, and then she fell in love with him. And then, he's the guy that sexually harassed Wonder Woman, but it was okay because he was under the lasso of truth. And women have been making excuses for the dirtbags this guy plays for way too long. And we have to ask, why are women like, oh, he's so hot when he does these dirtbaggy things that women just excuse in his parts, and then they're like, oh, outrage, when he does similar things as himself. Like, okay, it's a fictional character, but why are you lusting after, a rapist and a sexual harasser who lives in the ocean but pollutes it? Also, he is apparently a drunk, this is not sexy to me. And if you actually look at the character, they're kind of douchey. Aquaman is something of a douche. Khal Drogo is that stereotypical savage in Western literature, and because in the books he's not the same rapey rape person, at least not to Daenerys. But it's not okay just because it's fictional. We in gaming hear all the time, it's not okay, it sets, like, you're forgiving these characters, but maybe it's not forgiveness. And I realize maybe I'm overcomplicating this. Maybe they don't care what his character does. Maybe they just care that he's shirtless and beefy, and that's all they give a shit about. That's objectification. Sorry, ladies, that is objectification. You are reducing him to a piece of meat. You do not care what the character does. You do not care what his morals are or what his actions are. You are treating him like a piece of meat that is nice to look at for your own sexual gratification. That's not okay when anyone does it unless the person, consents to it. Blanking on Martha Nussbaum, that's her name. She actually said sometimes sexual objectification can be fun among consenting adults. It's a major part of BDSM. But BDSM consent is a huge part of that dynamic. The sub is always in charge. Everybody's good with it. Everybody knows they like it, but multiple Game of Thrones actors, the men, are complaining that they felt uncomfortable. I'm sure the women felt equally, if not more, uncomfortable, but they just don't feel like they can complain because they want to continue to work. Shows who has more kind of freedom to say what they want in Hollywood, doesn't it? These very talented people are saying these scenes made me uncomfortable. Is it really okay to continue to lust after stuff that made the person you're lusting after uncomfortable? Well, if it was a woman, no, it wouldn't be. And it's not okay just because it's Kit Harington or Jason Momoa. This is stuff that the hey boobs out element of HBO has to stop doing. There is a place for nudity. There is a way it can be done effectively. I think the nudity in Westworld is very well done. I think the nudity in movies like that Maria Bello, Viggo Mortensen directed by David Cronenberg movie, A History of Violence. That's a movie where a film I thought, wow, the nudity, it's there, but it absolutely made sense for those scenes. It was actually part of visual storytelling. It did not feel gratuitous, tacked on, or just as some sort of prop to titillate the audience while something unrelated was going on. Game of Thrones' major problem, like its biggest problem, and it actually detracts, is the pornographic elements, not just of the sexuality, but of the violence in some places. It actually elicits some of the disembowelings and things like that on that show actually elicited a laugh from me because I was so over the top. It triggered the same part of my brain that likes the Child's Play movies, you know, with Chucky. But I think, like, I am stuck on this moral conundrum of these actors and actresses saying, yeah, we don't like this. Well, actors in this case, and women going, oh, he's so hot. And people thinking, oh, this must be wonderful. Guys must love this. And the actors going, no, we really don't. I want to be known as something more than my body. You know, in Jason Momoa's case, he's pushing 40. He's not going to be able to do this for much longer. I mean, once you hit a certain age, your metabolism starts slowing down. Trust me, I'm getting there. But you know, you want to be known for your talents, as you guys appreciate me. And so you don't have to be a hard body all the time. You know, you did it, you stand by it, you don't want to have to do it anymore. Let someone else have a turn. That's how I really believe things could work. And the only way that works is if there's work for people who don't want to live in the gym, and then work for people who do want to live in the gym. Work for people who are a little bit older and therefore shouldn't be expected to look like you're 25 all the time. And then people who actually are 25 and look accordingly, you know, like there should be space for everything. There should be enough parts developed for different types of actors and actresses that we don't have this problem anymore, that there isn't this sort of premium put on it. The problem, it's not as bad as it used to be, but it used to be that if you did nudity, then you weren't considered for more serious parts. It's not so bad anymore because a premium cable is so dominant in terms of the really, like, you know, meaty parts in terms of content, but there's, you know, an expectation that everybody does nudity, although there's different types of nudity. I've talked about that in previous videos. But yeah, I really think we have to get real about the sexual objectification of actors like Jason Momoa. Cut it the fuck out, because it's not okay. And it's not okay just because you think he's a dick. You may have your reasons. It's not okay just because he's a man. No, anyone who feels like they are being treated like a slab of meat instead of a person should have the right to go, you know what? I'm not okay with this. And not only have the audiences listen to that, but the directors and the writers of these shows listen to the fact, because if your talent is being made to feel uncomfortable about nude scenes, that means the showrunners and the directors and all that stuff are doing something wrong. As someone who's done that stuff, you should not feel that way. When Frank Cho and I reenacted that cover where, like, you know, Mary Jane's getting out of the shower and Spider-Man's going, did I feel uncomfortable because I was bare-ass naked and wearing only a towel and showing my butt? No, we were all laughing. It was comfortable. It was respectful. And I didn't feel like anybody was looking down on me. I knew the world was probably going to look down on me, but everybody in that scene, you know, everybody was in on the joke. It was a very fun environment. And I would not do that if there was anybody making it feel weird or creepy or gross or dirty. It doesn't have to be that way. I have been adamant about that my entire career, that those sorts of scenes, because they are vulnerable, have to feel good. And the fact that so many Game of Thrones actors complained about that element, well, something's wrong. And that should be taken a closer look at. Instead, Jason Momoa gets, every time he says something that's completely consistent with his characters, and every time Kit Harington goes, you know, I really didn't like that, and used an awkward turn of phrase, he just gets pilloried. This isn't helping anything. This isn't advancing women. This isn't making men feel more able to speak out about this stuff. And I personally believe that I think men need the space to say, I don't like this either, to give women more ability to say they're uncomfortable with it as well. Because if men start saying, no, this doesn't feel good when I do it, it's less about, well, women's bodies are desirable and men's bodies are considered ugly, and more, maybe we have to find a better way to do this. Maybe we have to find a more comfortable way to do this. That's my thought as someone who's done it. And spent time on porn sets, which, wow, if those aren't fun, a guy can't get it up, and then you get no product. Then you get no movie that day. So porn sets are the funnest sets in the freaking world, because they have to be. All right. Thanks for watching. Again, help support this channel. Become a monthly patron, patreon.com/LeannaK. Thanks for watching.